So after 2 years of peace, somehow Sauron returned. And we're under attack again by the Rings of Power Season 2.
Disgusting.
The big question is, did they learn any lessons?
No.
Because they got scathed. Like, there are very few positive reviews. Everyone ripped them apart for a variety of things. A lot of them were like, oh, there's some good, but then there's so much slog and crap.
Yeah.
And we got 3 episodes tonight.
We had an entire Lord of the Rings movie length premiere.
And they gave us less than a movie.
Somehow TV shows, like, even though they have more time, they can't tell even a fraction of the story that a movie can.
They've just decided that TV shows are a good way to do inefficient writing. So they're just like, oh, we can just fuck around for like hours at a time.
And that's all this really was.
Well, the first 2 episodes are crowded by way too much Nori and not Gandalf, because we still have no confirmation despite all the hints, and he's even going for a wizard staff now. We still don't even know that it is Gandalf for sure. And that story in itself is just completely directionless. We start the show a while ago in the past. Basically, it's when Sauron gets murdered, but it seems like it's set just after they defeat Morgoth.
Yeah.
And Sauron's like, okay, I'm in charge now. And then Adar from last season says, lol, no, and kills him, so that we can then spend the first 10 minutes watching Sauron do the venom thing, how he slowly claws his way around his black ooze.
They did this to show how powerful Sauron is, because like season 1 you don't really see it. Like, he just a dude in season 1,
but I don't think they showed that he was powerful.
They showed that he was essentially immortal. There's a lot of power attached to the being that is him. That's what they showed.
Yes, they show that his like being is powerful, but he's not intimidating and gets called out by orcs and is like, I'll kill you. I'm a bad guy. I'm the king of evil now.
And he does kill one.
And it is moderately brutal, but just the fact that the first thing we see of the god king Sauron, and he just gets like called out by a bunch of orcs and then murdered by a dark elf.
Yeah.
It doesn't make him threatening, because he wasn't threatening in season 1 because he was just a bloke, like you said. Like, he's just a normal man.
We're just normal men.
In this, he's a little bitch boy, gets smacked around, gets killed almost immediately, and then we watch him do the venom thing for him to turn into Halbrand, and then he steals the mark from season 1 that makes Galadriel think he's a king. But it doesn't answer my question of why would he have that? Like, he sees it and he's like, oh, are you the king? And he's like, no.
This doesn't mean anything like that.
Why would you assume seeing this that I was the king? That's a crazy thing to assume.
Wouldn't a crown mean I was a king?
But then he takes it when they're in a shipwreck so that it lines up perfectly with like episode 2 where we first meet Halbrand. But it just makes it a completely pointless journey of like, okay, he died and came back to life, cool. I guess he can do that again if he needs to. Like, that's all we really learn.
And they could have made that like 5 minutes rather than make it half of the entire first episode.
Yeah, it's a cool little sequence, I guess. Like, if that happened in the lore, which it doesn't, it would be a cool thing that someone made to say like, hey guys, I imagined what it would be like if this happened, and everyone would be like, that's so cool, man. But in this, it's like, you just wasted 20 minutes of my time.
Halbrand.amv, Linkin Park. Somebody help me.
They seem to want to make Halbrand / Sauron the star of this show, but then they kind of forget that again. It's like they set him up to be the underdog even.
It's weird. They have to like dilute his character. It's like, no, we can't just have the character always winning and doing evil stuff and showing how powerful they actually are. Like in Breaking Bad, Gus Fring is always like on.
Yes.
Like he's always like running at 100% evil capacity. Whereas like Halbrand, who's actually like the evil king of all darkness, like he's essentially Satan, is like, I want to be the king and a blacksmith for a little bit. And like, I'm the king of the orcs. And they're like, no, you're not. And he's like, maybe.
It is strange that, they show that he does actually want to retire from being evil, because he's like, I tried being evil, got stabbed in the back, didn't love that, had to spend ages as like a swamp goo.
It didn't do a good job of telling it. At least to me, I didn't see enough to be like, why isn't he just more vengeful?
Well, yeah, they just turn it off. Like, they do all that setup.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being Halbrand that we already knew.
I feel like I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe when he died and got reformed as Halbrand, he's going to like forget a little bit. Like he's going to have his memory wiped, but then like you see him like 3 seconds later and he's like, and like his eyes are doing like the whole like darkness thing.
When he meets up with those guys and sees that he's carrying around a subscribe button, he's like, does that mean you're subscribed to Bergenbeard?
No, I simply just hit the bell notifications.
No, I just lurk and comment. He's meant to be this master manipulator. And he's going to basically go back to Celebrimbor and is like, we need to make some rings. But you would think Celebrimbor would know that he's Sauron because you would think Galadriel would have found out this horrible thing. And she's like, guys, don't be mad at me. I'm so sorry. But Sauron's back. Like, I was right. But then he tricked me. So, like, fair game. Both of us were wrong.
But why would she do something selfless to finally finish the quest she started 1,010 years ago?
Yeah. Instead, we're introduced to her chasing down Elrond, who is just being a lad and is like, oh, Sauron's back. Wait, no, he doesn't even know Sauron's back.
No.
Elrond's just running away with the rings because he found out that Halbrand wasn't who he said he was.
Yes, that's all he knows.
And that's enough for him to be like, oh, that's bad. Which, I mean, semi-fair game because the rings are super powerful. And if an unknown entity had their hands in it, it's best for him to get it to the king and be like...
But why would he immediately jump to a being who has the ability to corrupt magic rings and not just a human?
I mean, he goes to the king to be like, give me further instructions. Like, I don't trust Galadriel. She was tricked by this guy. I don't trust that guy either. You're the king. I'll give you these rings. And then Galadriel goes, oh, it was Sauron, by the way. Whoopsie doopsie. And then he's like, oh, no, that's even worse. I'm actually going to jump off this cliff now. Because we were worried that they were going to carry that storyline on of like, oh, no one knows it's Sauron still. So he's able to trick people too easily. But then she does come out and say it. And we're like, oh, thank God. I was so worried that they were going to belabor that point and just it was going to grate on us. But she just tells everyone immediately. And we're like, thank God. But turns out she didn't tell the one person she needed to tell, Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
So he's still like, oh, Halbrand, like, we were good buddies. He's a little bit cautious because she apparently said, oh, don't trust him. So he's like, okay.
She said I'm not to have any dealings with him any further.
But then as soon as it starts raining, he's like, oh, little Halbrand in the cold. Oh, no.
But how cool is his umbrella, though?
He was very cool. Sauron's supposed to be like the master manipulator. But I don't know if the writers are able to come up with like clever ways to do that.
Their idea of Sauron like manipulating Celebrimbor was like, I don't know, the king kind of said you're a bitch. And then he's like, how dare he?
They've given Celebrimbor like hubris. That's what they've decided he has, to the point where, yeah, if you
this
say
5,000-year-old elf, they've just made him salty.
Galadriel said you couldn't make any extra rings. Like, she said you just weren't good enough. And he's like, oh, show her. Makes all of the rings. Like, he's not a master manipulator if everyone else is a fucking moron.
Yeah.
That's going to ruin the whole show because that's what it's going to hinge around. And we've seen in trailers that Celebrimbor like finds out the truth and he's like, no, I've been deceived. But it's like, dude, you're an idiot.
Yeah, this is like, what's that movie where he's like the only smart guy in the world?
Oh, you mean Idiocracy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, it's just, that's the movie, but like Sauron is...
Yeah, Sauron is the only smart person because he's just like, oh no, I'm in the wrong line.
I should be in the making magic rings line. And Caliban was like, oh my God, you're so right. Let's make some rings. He does do one cool thing where he like turns from Halbrand to Anatar, which is like, I guess like who he really is.
Anatar is the fake name that he uses when he appears as someone else to trick people, because Anatar means the gift giver or something like that. He's the name that everyone thought that he would use in the first season. But then they're like, okay, I guess they've changed Halbrand to Anatar.
It's because then everyone would just find out and they wanted to do the twist.
But everyone knew that already. That's the dumb thing.
But they thought maybe they could do the twist of Gandalf is Sauron and Sauron is Gandalf, whatever.
And they're still relying on that whole, like, oh, who's this mysterious character? Because Gandalf's whole storyline doesn't make sense to be in the show unless it's Gandalf. Like, if he turned out to be another wizard, why the fuck do we care?
He, calling it now, lock of the week, he is going to be Saruman.
That'd be stupid. Exactly.
They have to do some dumb shit like that.
No, they don't, because they think just making him Gandalf is like a big reveal and we're going to freak out.
Just wait.
That's Ryan Johnson's subversion of expectations.
Yeah. Wouldn't Gandalf already be around, especially if Saruman was his teacher?
No, they just don't care. They've just changed it. Okay. Yeah, they've just decided. The one thing that I'll say that they did do good was that they've done a lot less Galadriel, especially in episodes 2 and 3. I don't know if the show is bored of her or they have enough other characters now that they're thinking they can rely on them, or there's just no room for her. But there's a lot less Galadriel in these 3 episodes than there was in last season.
Morford Clark, we're just going to like slow down on you. We played you up a lot. Like season 1 was her show.
I'd like to think that, but I think it'll just be like episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7
they're
will be
going to
her.
double down on her. I think they have to break her down a little bit, and then she's going to come back like twice as strong.
They're going to try to make her the underdog.
Yes, that's exactly it. Like now she's like kind of not being betrayed, but there's bigger players now in her life. Like Elrond has now become more important than her. The Elf King is now doing more important things. Celebrimbor is doing more important things than Halbrand, blah, blah, blah. So she's like doesn't have control of any of these aspects of her life now. And I think, now she's going to come back soon and do something.
But also they gave her a ring of power. So she's even more powerful than she was before. And the way she gets that ring of power, hilariously, is Elrond jumps off the bridge to escape and everything because he's like, I can't trust anybody with these rings. And it's kind of stupid, but kind of fair game because he's like, if Sauron has corrupted these, it'll be worse than just the tree dying. Like, this will be catastrophic. So he goes to the oldest elf he knows, Círdan, to basically say, hey, what's your advice / can we destroy them? Do you know any ideas? And instead, Círdan goes, oh, these rings are actually dope as hell. I'm going to give one to the king.
Well, at first he's like, oh, no, yeah, definitely. That's I'm going to go roll it out to this deepest point of the entire world where not even God could find it. And then he's like, well, just one look wouldn't hurt.
Ooh, he like drops it weirdly.
Well, he might be intervened by God. Maybe.
Yeah, or
the ocean.
Or Sauron, because Sauron seems to be able to do some powerful shit.
Yeah.
Which he shows off later. So after he's looked at the rings and decided, no, this is sick, I've decided I want red, and then
he put on his J.O. crystal.
I'm going to go give Gil-galad the blue one. And then the king's like holding the rings.
He gets scared. He gets like a fright from something.
Or intervention from the gods.
Intervention from the gods that made him go,
it's the will of the force. It's that whole thing. Like whenever you don't know how to do something, be like, ooh, the wind blew.
Oh my God.
Because he drops them and then it like bounces perfectly. Because before that happened, you said to me, how is Galadriel going to convince the king that she's not in good favor with right now that she should get one of the rings? And we're like, yeah, he would be stupid to trust her because she got tricked by Sauron.
He hates her by the end of the first season.
But then he drops the ring and it just bounces down the stairs to her and she just picks it up and goes, cool. And it's like, that's not...
The king's like, I want to do that. And then just puts his on instead of being like, no, take that off. Just take that off right now.
Get that back. What are you doing? And then gives it to like someone he actually trusts.
Yeah.
Because she's only commander of like the northern armies.
Just not even like the armies.
They've probably got 3 other armies.
I think those other people that were in that meeting were like the other generals.
Yeah, give one of them out.
There was also a woman there to wear that feminine ring.
It is a very womanly ring, which is so funny.
He's like, yes, 2 nice gold, big ornate rings with big jewels. And then one will make twisty and
dainty and silver. But now they have the rings and then the tree just gets fixed. They don't take them off though.
I was hoping they'd like touch the tree. Yeah. You'd see the rings glow or them shake a little bit.
The mithril needed to be near the trees, but like, no.
No, people just needed to wear the ring.
Yeah.
Because surely just the rings existing when Elrond was holding them near the tree
why do they need
would
to
have
be
done
worn?
the same thing. They needed to be worn for some reason. I guess like channeling the power.
Weirdly, this show about a world-ending evil king has no stakes for me.
Yeah.
Like, the elves were like, oh no, our tree is dying. That means we have to leave. It's like, okay.
Guys, we have to leave this 2-bedroom house and move into that mansion with the free food and the partying all the time. The king said, well, it's time for us to all go back to Valinor. He even sings the song.
Yeah, he sung a nice song. He gave us a nice tune.
He did sing.
I know that they're singing in Lord of the Rings, but it still feels dumb.
I was telling Dan, there's a lot of singing in The Hobbit. Like when they cross into the land of the elves, they're like, is that singing?
But that's also from the perspective of someone else going in, like, and these are like our magical characters.
Yeah.
Whereas they are our main characters.
Yeah.
So it's weird to have like, and it's also not helped by the fact that Poppy Brandyfoot continues to sing.
The whole time Galadriel is trying to convince the king to be like, let me just go back to Celebrimbor, let me go find him, make sure he's safe. I'm scared Sauron's not actually in Mordor and he's actually gonna try and find him and do some mischievous shit. And the king's like, no, that's silly. I would never risk you going. He says no, and then she goes back to the king and he's like, guess what? You're going. She's like, oh, great, you trust me? He's like, Elrond's your boss.
But the dumb thing about that is that before they do that, they send a messenger because ravens don't exist in this world.
And it wasn't just one guy. There was a few people.
There was 2. We saw 2. But they send 2 people to go check in at Eregion and be like, hey, Celebrimbor, Sauron's Halbrand. Do not trust Sauron, Halbrand.
In fact, don't trust anybody.
Even if he puts on a blonde wig, don't trust Sauron.
What if he has elf ears?
Oh, shit.
What if his name isn't Sauron? What if he calls himself something else?
What if it's Anatar now?
What if he's really hot?
But we find out that they die. But the timelines are so messed up. Like, the time it takes for things to happen in this show is stupid and wrong. Because we see later on that Isildur is alive, and his horse that gets set free in episode 7, as far as we can tell, goes straight to get him, finds him in Shelob's lair, big spider. And then he's still alive after possibly weeks, because Elrond says that the rings took weeks to make. So there's so many things of like, things take time in this universe. Getting from point A to point B takes time. Whereas Sauron goes from Eregion just before the rings are built, goes to Mordor, gets captured, spends time in captivity there, then goes back to Eregion before the messengers can arrive, and then before Galadriel and Elrond can arrive. And Elrond's done his little, like, dive in the waterfall and hide out for a day or two. I don't know how long things are taking.
I think it's confusing because these showrunners love to show one person's little 5-minute segment. It's like, well, they have to go through a night, a day, a night, a day, a night, and a day. But then they'll cut to someone else and they'll do their whole 5-minute arc in just one day.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, hold on. We just watched this person go through like 3 days and then this person went through no days.
Yeah, we get 3 or 4 days with Brandyfoot, and then her friend rocks up and says like, oh, you've been gone for a while. So it's like, but we don't know how long they've been on this trek. They were in the green area and now they're in the Gerudo desert, and they're going to meet a bunch of Gerudos apparently.
The only cool thing about Adar is that he meets with the hill trolls, the eater of dragon bones, and he's like, where's Sauron? And he's like, oh, and that's it. That's all you see.
I guess they're meeting so that they can bolster the army. The weird thing about the whole Adar thing is that Adar thinks he killed Sauron, but now Sauron's back. But all the orcs hate Sauron, but they're going to follow him later. Like, we know that that's a thing that happens.
I think he's going to use a lot more fear.
The power over flesh. It's just kind of weird that they're semi-humanizing the orcs.
Dad, I'm scared. Is Sauron really back? And he's like, trust your father. And then he goes and hugs his orc wife who has an orc baby. And I'm like, what the fuck is this show? These are supposed to be monsters.
Yeah, they're basically saying like, oh, these are German soldiers.
We were just following orders.
Exactly. It's literally like, these are Nazis. Not all Nazis were bad, guys. According to this show. I'm not saying that's
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Tell me about Miss Brandyfoot and her big grey-bearded friend.
We semi-touched on it before. It's like, it's only interesting if it's Gandalf, and they still haven't confirmed it's Gandalf. And instead, they've introduced a new mysterious wizard.
The Dark Wizard.
Who is definitely Saruman. Like, there's no way he's not, right?
He's definitely someone. He's very powerful.
And they brought back them and M.
My most powerful general.
She got deleted season 1 pretty easily. Like, he grabbed a stick. He keeps finding one-use items and, like, blowing people away. But that's literally how Brandy's storyline goes. They get in trouble. He uses some magic to save them, but it slightly goes wrong. But at the end of episode, he makes a tornado to protect them and blows away Brandyfoot and friend.
They get taken into the sky. These are little people, by the way.
It's twisters. Like, it's a twister movie. They get deleted, but they'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Gandalf's whole story is literally just like,
I need to find a stick.
I need to find a stick.
I see this stick in my head. Is this my stick? It looks kind of like my stick broke.
It's the little kid's book, Are You My Mummy? He's just going to keep, are you my stick? And then like, doesn't use, are you my stick?
He's going to grab a stick and it's going to morph into his stick.
Saruman can't be a bad guy yet, right? Like he has,
because
he has
they're
to be
friends.
Yeah. So if that's between now and then, I guess he's hunting down the Ishtar and then he's going to be like, oh, I'll train you. I'll make you a good wizard. And then I guess for the rest of the season, that's what'll happen.
I'm not looking forward to this storyline at all. I'm not looking forward to it.
It's the only moderately interesting thing is Sauron's performance and like what he's doing. It's still a very pretty show.
Wait. You're missing one storyline before we wrap up for the folks. Isildur and Arondir.
Yeah, so they basically do nothing. They killed off Bronwyn between seasons.
Did she not want to come back?
I wouldn't. She probably got roasted on the internet and she's like, fuck this.
Very true. Well, she was like, people would just been calling her Mary Sue everywhere she went.
Well, yeah.
That was her character.
She saved both Arondir and her son. Every time they got in trouble, she would rock up behind the orc, stab it in the head. So basically she died from poison. And now we have an angsty teen again who's
He's like, you're not my dad.
My thought is maybe he's somehow Isildur's brother because Isildur ends up hanging out with them now. And Isildur is meant to have a brother and we don't know who the kid's dad is. And they both have mop haircuts and they're both pretty tanned. That's my only guess.
But how is he going to find out that he's his brother? He got lifted up by an ant.
Yeah, off screen again because I don't know if budget he gets lifted up by possible ents because you pointed out that the guy was chopping a tree down. And we know Arondir hates chopping trees down. So
very true.
He'll be friend of the ent. But Arondir's accent still doesn't work with being an elf. The actor has a very strong accent. And then
he's like Peruvian.
He's trying to put on like a British accent to make himself sound more like an elf. But it's just very mumbly and I can't make sense of it. Like, either let him use his own accent
His waves have
or
grown out
don't
a bit.
cast him.
He's getting like a fuzzy waves.
Oh, I was going to say, no one's haircut's changed still, so we still don't know how much time it's been.
Yeah.
The
very
one
true.
fun lore thing was that Círdan was shaving.
Yes, that was cool. And then like that forced us down a little rabbit hole where Dan was saying that once elves become like really old, then they get facial hair.
Apparently in the third age or something they can grow beards, but this guy is the first one that can grow a beard. I guess that proves that they know the lore and they just decide not to do it.
Someone just found this cool tidbit. Durin doesn't have that complex.
He's a poor person now.
He's a poor person. We can't afford big mushroom. We have to get little mushroom. So when Mount Doom erupts, it causes their light channels to cave in and no one can help them except for Sauron. He says, hey, look, if you take these magic rings, they'll fix all your problems.
They legitimately say rings of power multiple times.
And they say the Lord of the Rings.
He says you will be remembered as the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2, now on Amazon Prime.
Hello. This scriptwriter thought he was cooking, huh?
Instead of just digging out these tunnels, I guess they're saying it's unsafe. And instead of just opening the front doors, farming out the front of their Khazad-dûn, instead they think rings of power are going to help them dig through the mountain better.
It's interesting because like him and his dad have almost like swapped characters a bit where he's like, no, let's just focus and do what dwarves do. We'll figure this out. And his dad at the end is like, we need these rings.
So by the end of the third episode, the dwarves are all getting their rings. The men still haven't got their rings. We haven't met any kings of men.
No.
Because Anatar, Sauron, has decided to make the dwarven rings, he says, I have an idea. I need you to make 9 rings for the men and 7 for the dwarf lords. And we haven't met any of the dwarf lords. We maybe know one.
We met one.
Like, we
there
know
were some
Durin.
other dwarfs maybe in last season at the end.
I guess that's him wanting to make sure that he can control literally all of them.
And Celebrimbor was also like, I'm not making anything for no humans. They are very like
Stupid.
they're corruptible, they're
Stinky.
impressionable,
Stinky
they die
humans.
very easily. And he's like, no, we must. The very last one of the most boring. Back in Numenor, Isildur's dad is trying to help the blind queen, and on the day of her coronation, her cousin conspires against her with Isildur's own beautiful big-breasted sister to show everybody, look, she was using a palantir, haha, she's evil.
Yeah, she pondered the orb and everyone's like, elf magic.
Elf ponderer, orb ponderer. And then an eagle lands, which could have been a sign for anybody. It was her coronation, and he pulls out a sword, and then some guy's like, holy shit, that's fucking cool.
That's
and
for
everyone's like,
Farazar.
oh shit, Farazar, man.
Because they said, I think 10 minutes before, he's like, wow, did you know that if an eagle rocks up to your coronation, that is a huge deal.
And then he looks to the left and goes, quite devilish, Farazar, quite devilish indeed.
He either had one in captivity, or he really is meant to be in charge.
Yeah.
Or it was meant for the Queen Regent, and he just took credit.
I think, he just took his chance.
But aren't eagles clever? Wouldn't the eagle be like, nah, man, I meant her?
They're omnipotent they're beings. They're not just birds.
Yeah, so he could have said, no, I don't mean that guy, I mean her.
Yeah.
It's very directionless. We're one episode away from being halfway through the season.
I think these 3 episodes were a waste of time.
It should have been
It
one
could have
episode.
been one really well done episode. All we've done in these 3 episodes is just be like, it just felt like here's what you missed on Glee. These 3 episodes just set us up for the season.
It literally just sets up the status quo of the whole season, which you shouldn't be taking half the season to do. And especially because from what I've heard, they're doing a 2 or 3 episode battle. We're not an episode or 2 away from the battle. Like, what they have set up so far is nowhere near an all-out war or a battle or anything. They're milking the seasons, I guess. The start of the season made me feel like this show shouldn't be what it is. Like, the idea behind this show is stupid. If they knew they were already going to go off book this much, what they should have just done is given us Sauron being the main character.
Yes.
Not actually Sauron, like, do the Halbrand thing and make that the reveal. If they want to make Sauron the underdog, actually go into it and make him the underdog. Don't just
go
make
all
him a
in.
weirdly redeemable villain.
Yeah, it's like, I feel kind of bad for him. He was betrayed.
Hitler decided not to
These
be a
are
bad
evil
guy.
people. Yeah, literally.
Tell us what you thought of the episode. Do you think it was 3 episodes worth? Like, that was 3 hours of content we just put ourselves through. And it doesn't even really feel like one episode. You could very easily remove all of the Brandyfoot stuff, remove all the Isildur stuff, and you could have gotten a pretty decent first episode.
Yeah. First episode should have just been everything that had to do with Hellbrand and Galadriel.
Yeah.
Just
And then I'd be like, wow, they've set this season up for some cool stuff to happen.
tell us if you liked it though, and why.